Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Daine Dasi Purvakshaha Dasi Purvakshaha Shilakantana Kalaye Shilakantana Ito Narsinga Parato Narsinga Parato Yato Narsinga Yato Mitato Narsinga Vahe Narsinga Ridaye Narsinga Vahe Narsinga Ridaye Narsinga Narasimhamadin Sharanam Prapade Narasimhamadin Sharanam Prapade Narasimhamadin Sharanam Prapade Narasimhamadin Sharanam Prapade Pravakara Kamala Vare Natham Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Anubhinga Keshavanita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Vakara Kamala Vare Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Anubhinga Keshavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Savatara Kamala Vare Nakama Buddha Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Anubhinga Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Avatara Kamala Vare Namah Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Anubhinga Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Narsinga-dev, Jaya Narsinga-dev, Jaya Narsinga-dev, Narsinga-dev, Jaya Narsinga-dev, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Pradhan Maharaj, Jaya Pradhan Maharaj, Jaya Pradhan Maharaj, Pradhan Maharaj, Pradhan Maharaj, Jaya Pradhan Maharaj. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to our Tuesday evening Bhagavad-gita.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri
Hare
Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri
And today we have assembled on the auspicious occasion of Varshana Mataji's birthday today. So we will sing Hare Krishna
to you.
Everybody.
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
to
Hare Krishna,
Dear
dear Varshana Mataji.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna to
you.
Varshana Mataji,
Thank you
is
so much,
today
Mataji.
means according to India's time is today or it was yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. We should have celebrated it yesterday. But
It's
you're
okay.
following. You just increased your birthday celebration, Varshana Mataji.
Yeah.
So praying to the Lordships, let us all pray to the Lordships that they shower their causeless mercy on Varshana Mataji, and that she get whatever she wants in this life, and that her devotional service just grow exponentially in leaps and leaps and bounds and bounds. Thank you for considering our request. Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hari Bol.
Need this prayer.
Happy birthday, Varshana Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, everybody.
Dandavat Pranam.
There we go.
Dandavat Pranam, Shraddha Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam, Priyanka, it's good to see you. Khyati Mataji, thank Hare Krishna, Rini Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Happy Krishna conscious birthday, Varshana Mataji.
Yes, and
Thank you so much, Khyati Mataji.
She's the one who started to remind us. There we go. Okay, so should we get started then? What do you say?
Yes.
Yes or yes? All right, so we will get started after these short prayers. Om Ajnanatimandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So today we are going to continue reading from the third chapter of Bhagavad-gita, which is called Karma Yoga. And so we'll first do a little bit of a recap so that we find our bearings. Chapter 3 is a big chapter and also has a lot of paradigm shifts, right, from what we have been accustomed to thinking. Of course, chapter 2 was also a paradigm shift, which moves us from thinking that we are the body to the fact that we are the soul. And then now here, I'm the body, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. What am I supposed to do then with this body? So Krishna is just then now going to explain that. So we'll go through the few verses that we have done, and then we will go into our verse for today, which is verse number 9. So let's get going there. And first of all, I will start with sharing my screen with you. Hopefully that goes through. Text off number 2. Here. Can you raise your hand and tell me that you're able to see the screen or not? So Kumal Radhimataji is not able to see, so Tapa is able to see. Okay, so that means that so Kumal Radhi might want to move around your screens. So now you can see it. Okay, good. All right. So after Krishna explains the Buddhi Yoga and the Sankhya Yoga to him, chapter number 2, then Arjuna is just confused and he thinks Buddhi Yoga means doing things for God, so I should not be fighting the war. So he says, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. So the Sankhya Yogis and the Buddhi Yogis or Bhakti Yogis. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So he's warning him not to give up working. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing anything, even for a moment. One who restrains the senses of action, the karmendriyas, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself, number one, and is called a pretender, and then thereby he deludes the other people also around him. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. Yesterday, performed your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work, right? So that's what we had talked and discussed till yesterday. And so Krishna is saying that, you have to do some work to maintain your body. And so one might think, up until this point when Arjuna has heard this, and as somebody is speaking to us, we can continue to think, right? We all do that. And so as we are continuing to, Arjuna is listening, he can think that, all right, so one has to work to maintain the physical body because the soul has to stay inside this body. So if a person is spending his whole life trying to maintain his physical body, then that's the fine thing to do. Krishna, you told me to do that, right? So then immediately in text number 9, Krishna is going to clarify the position. And so now we're going to go to text number 9 and see what's inside text number 9 for us today. So Krishna is telling now that, okay, you have to work, but then how have you got to do the work? So yagyarthat karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Yagyarthat karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Yagyarthat karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Yagya arthat. So yagya arthat, done only for the sake of yagya or Viṣṇu. Karmanaha, then work. Anyatra, otherwise. Lokaha, world. I am this, where we are. Karma bandhanaha, bondage by work. Tat, of him. Artham, for the sake. Karma, work. Kaunteya, O son of Kuntī. Mukta sangaha, liberation from association. Samacharaha, do perfectly. Right? So earlier Krishna had introduced us to the word mithyachara, so uchyate. So that was achar or behavior, which was unrealistic, and he was called a pretender. And now this is samachara, achar is perfect, sama. Okay, so what he's saying, Prabhupada is saying here is in the translation, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So he's saying that work done as a sacrifice for Viṣṇu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kuntī, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So if you are saying that I'm maintaining this body, that you said that in the previous word, that, one cannot even, live without working. So I'm going to work so that I can live. But then he's saying you have to then find out and go deeper into it and see that why do I have to live? So slowly through these verses that we have gone through, Krishna is walking Arjuna through the stages of working. One can work just for oneself and for the bodily maintenance, right? But here, or one can work for the family like that. But here, what he's saying is that work has to be done as a sacrifice for Viṣṇu. So he's bringing in the transcendental quality to our working. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that since one has to work, even for the simple maintenance of the body, the prescribed duties for a particular social position and quality are so made so that that purpose can be fulfilled. Yajna means Lord Viṣṇu or sacrificial performances. So yajna means Viṣṇu. So we have to understand that yajna is another name for Lord Viṣṇu. Actually, Lord Viṣṇu incarnates in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. When we read about the list of scheduled incarnations of Krishna, scheduled and unscheduled, both are there mentioned. And so there is a mention of Krishna coming in as yajna. So, and he comes as, as Krishna, not as, Varaha or something like that, but in the form of yajna, and which is a Viṣṇu form. And so here, there, Prabhupada explains that when the posts of demigods, right? We know that the demigods are actually posts, right? Indra is a post, and that post is that he's king of all the demigods, right? Similarly, Agni is a post, and one who is the demigod for fire, right? Moon is a post, the one who is the king of the moon planet. So Surya, like that, so on and so forth. So these are designations that these are positions that are there. And a jiva soul, by doing certain activities while they are here over a period of several lifetimes, can become qualified to occupy these positions. So these positions have got a job description. And if your resume matches that job description, then there are chances that you can get that job. Right? Now, sometimes what happens is that one Indra's term is over, and now another Indra has to come. But at that time, there is no soul that is qualified enough to take the place of Indra, occupy the position of king of all the demigods. So in such cases, what happens is that the Lord himself incarnates, and he will come and take the position of Indra and run the affairs of whatever Indra has to do, and till a soul becomes qualified, right, to occupy that position. So the yajna avatar of Krishna was for that purpose. There was nobody was qualified to become Indra, so that is why Krishna had to come. So here they're saying that you do every work that you have to do, it has to do for Viṣṇu. So here says yajna means Lord Viṣṇu or sacrificial performance. All sacrificial performances are meant for the satisfaction of Lord Viṣṇu. The Vedas enjoin yajna vai Viṣṇu. In other words, the same is very, very important. The same purpose is served whether one performs prescribed yajnas or directly serves Viṣṇu. So you'll get the same thing, same results. So here there's a concept of sacrifice that has come up, right? All sacrificial performances, says, right? All sacrificial performances are meant for satisfaction of Lord Viṣṇu. And so let's get from you, what do you think sacrifice means. What is sacrifice? When we use the word sacrifice, what does that mean? What thing comes to your mind? Just let it be just a brainstorming session. When we use the word sacrifice, what are some of the words that come to your mind? Have you seen sacrifices? Come across sacrifices? You can unmute yourself. Oh, you can unmute yourself and answer.
Mataji, if we have something and we are giving up that particular thing.
Okay, so you have something and you give it away. All right. What are some of the other things that come to your mind when you say sacrifice?
Performing some sacrifices to remove anarthas, or like doing an actual yagya.
Yeah, like a fire sacrifice,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you think about oblations, right? People are putting things into a fire. That is sacrifice. And then, of course, the ghori, the ghore mom, the ghastly.
The ghastly.
Animal sacrifice, right? So these are sacrifices. So one of the things that we have to remember is that, go ahead, Vachana.
Yes, Mataji, sacrifices many a times, you see, when we go to some pilgrimage to Ganges, you see, there also people take a vow and sacrifice that from today on, I will not do this kind of a thing. Or they leave drinking, some people leave gambling, some people leave grasta life, take sannyasa. So that kind of a thing also people go and take vow there and they sacrifice their life for in the service of the Lord.
Right. So which Sutta Parmati was saying that you give up something that you have, right?
Yes.
So you give up enjoyment. Right. And then of course people sacrifice their life for their countries. I was expecting that answer from you, Shraddha-ji, because you're from a military background. But anyway, so yeah. So this is so one of the things that one has to understand is that when you're doing a sacrifice, that sacrifice should lead to something better. For example, a person who is heading an organization may decide to step down from his position and make way for somebody who is better and who is much more capable of handling it. Sometimes people go very old and they still latch on to their designation, to that position, and won't let go, won't give a chance to any of the newcomers till they die, right? But somebody might voluntarily give these up. So whenever you're doing sacrifices, we have to make sure that, the end result of whatever you're doing has to be good, right? Otherwise, we are in trouble. Now, let's look at chapter 17 of Bhagavad-gita.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Yesterday, I was just going through, and one list came. So many officers died because of COVID. So there was one daughter of the officer, and she said that when she went for the vaccine, this was long ago, and she said that I'm ready to please take me for the trial. So she went there, and so that will also be considered as a sacrifice, that she went so that the doctors can make a trial and see if the vaccine will help the people.
Yes. So just give me a second over here. Are you able to see my screen that I'm sharing with you? All right, so I was trying to make a point here, and that is that in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, there is a mention of sacrifices. Now, chapter 17 of Bhagavad-gita talks about divisions of faith according to the three modes of material nature. So when we talk about sacrifice, then sacrifices are also classified into three sections, right? So he's saying that sacrifices, the sacrifice performed according to the directions of scripture as a matter of duty by those who desire no reward is of the nature of goodness. But the sacrifice performed for some material benefit or for the sake of pride, O chief of the Bharata, you should know to be in the mode of passion. Any sacrifice performed without regard to the directions of scripture, without distributing of prasadam, spiritual food, without chanting of Vedic hymns and remuneration to the priest, and without faith is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. Right? So we have to constantly look at and check what is the intention behind whatever you're doing. And especially, when it comes to the sacrifice, there has to be something good that should come out of it. For example, Ravana did extreme of sacrifice. He was cutting off his head and he was putting them in the sacrifice, right? What good came out of that, right? So one has to keep that in mind, that sacrifices should ultimately lead to something good coming up there. So continuing on with the purport for 3.9, he says that all sacrificial performances are also meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. And when we were talking about sacrifices, and the end result has to be good. So, and we also talked about the ghoremam, the bad kind of sacrifices, the ghastly sacrifices, like sacrificing a sheep or a goat in the fire, right? And Prabhupada explains that why were these kind of things done? And in those sacrifices, when an animal was sacrificed or cut, then the animal, either would get a younger body in the same species, or depending on where they were in the karmic cycle, they would be born as a human being in the next life. So those kind of sacrifices also had a benefit, right? It was ultimately for a better thing that sacrifice was done. Now, of course, in Kali Yuga, sacrifices are banned, because when these kind of sacrifices are performed, the mantras that are recited have to be perfectly done. And since people are not qualified enough in Kali Yuga to do that, so don't recommend doing sacrifices. And also these kind of sacrifices cannot be performed on all animals. Like you cannot take a cow and sacrifice it, like that. Ashwamedh Yagya, there used to be that horse that would go around and then it was killed in the end, and then it would get a human body in the next life, because you need a human body majorly to do devotional service. So the Vedas enjoin Yagya by Vishnu. In other words, the same purpose is served whether one performs prescribed yagyas or directly serves Lord Vishnu. Krishna consciousness is therefore performance of yagya as it is prescribed in this verse. The Varnashram institution also aims at satisfying Lord Vishnu. Varnashrama acharvata purushena parapuman Vishnu aradhyate. Therefore, one has to work for the satisfaction of Vishnu. Any other work done in this material world will be a cause of bondage, for both good and evil work have their reactions. This is something constantly to be emphasized again and again, and that is that good work also has got its bondage. So just staying in the mode of goodness is not enough, right? And this is what Krishna is walking Arjuna through, right? First he said not working is wrong, right? And then he said, well, you have to do your prescribed duties. And now he's saying, well, you know what? You have to do your prescribed duties for Krishna. So he's elevating his work like that. Therefore, one has to work in Krishna consciousness to satisfy Krishna or Vishnu. And while performing such activities, one is in the liberated state. So here itself, one becomes liberated in this material world itself. Right? Therefore, one has to work in Krishna consciousness to satisfy Krishna or Vishnu. And while performing such activities, one is in the liberated stage. This is the great art of doing work. This is the great art of doing work. The work has become an art now. When you link it and you understand how can I, whatever I'm doing, how can I link it with Krishna? How can I link it with Krishna? That is the art that we need to learn. And in the beginning, and here's the warning, that, okay, I'm just, I'm now, from now onwards, I'm, to use my intelligence and I'm going to do everything that I'm doing. And I'm saying, this I'm doing for Krishna, this I'm doing for Krishna, right? But he's saying that in the beginning, when we start this move, right? He's saying that in the beginning, This process requires very expert guidance. Very expert guidance. It's not that we just do things whimsically. Very expert guidance. One should therefore act very diligently under the expert guidance of a devotee of Lord Krishna, or under the direct instruction of Lord Krishna himself, under whom Arjuna had the opportunity to work. Nothing should be performed for sense gratification, but everything should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. This practice will not only save one from the reaction of work, but also gradually elevate one to the transcendental loving service of the Lord, which alone, I repeat that, which alone can raise you to the kingdom of God, which alone will help us go back to Godhead. This is very, very important thing for us all to keep in our mind. Right? So whatever you have been given, whatever is your duties, and whatever sacrifices you're doing, as I mentioned in verse number 17, that sacrifices that you're performing could also be in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Right? And somebody might say that, if I'm following the orders of my seniors, I am doing my duty. I'm performing a duty. So what is wrong with that? For example, a person is in the military. Now Arjuna is going to fight the war. So in the military, this is what happens. When people fight the war, they kill. But are they sent to the gallows for killing the enemy? No. Right? Not. Because they are doing it under the guidance. Right? They are the laws of the country. You have to follow the laws of the country. You followed that, you went there, you did it as a duty. Now somebody might say, well, I work in a slaughterhouse. I'm doing my duty. My boss told me to cut, so I cut off the heads, of the animals, like that. So that is where the three, through three modes of material nature come in. So yes, you have to obey your boss, but your boss has to be obeying the dharma. Your boss has to be acting according to the shastras. So we have to choose our boss very judiciously. And that is why when we are trying to say that I'm doing my duty, you need expert guidance in the beginning. Somebody has to guide you. Otherwise, we will not know. We might get misled. We might just think that, I can do this, I can do that. I'm, doing my duty. And that's what sometimes people think, that Bhagavad-gita is telling you how to do the duties. Yes, Bhagavad-gita tells you how to do the duty. Bhagavad-gita is about Arjuna performing his duty. But we also have to remember that Arjuna has to fight the war. And when he's fighting the war, if he's thinking about ghore karmani, that this is, very ghastly work that you're asking me to do, he has to remember that Krishna is asking him to do this work. If somebody else is asking you to do this work, who is not a dharmic personality, then you can definitely say, I'm not going to fight this war. But if you are saying, if the war is a religious, the war is being fought on the side of dharma, and that is what was the biggest fear of Dhritarashtra. The Bhagavad-gita opens with Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. He was afraid that, the Pandavas are on the side of dharma, so they're going to win the war. Right? So dharma is very, very powerful. Right? And there's a very nice verse which is going to come later on in chapter 4 of Bhagavad-gita, but I think I'll just bring it up. So when you are working for Krishna, what happens? And just bear with me when I bring that up here. So easy to remember. And this verse says, Brahma arpanam Brahma havet Brahmagno Brahmana hutam Brahmevatina gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. And what are the synonyms? Brahma means spiritual in nature. Arpanam, contribution, giving. Brahma, the supreme. Havihi is butter. So that's a nice way, right? Havi, butter. Brahma, spiritual. Agna, in the fire of consummation. Brahmana, by the spirit soul. Hutam, offered. Brahma, spiritual kingdom. Eva, certainly. Tena, by him. Gantavya, to be reached. Brahma, spiritual, again. Karma, in activity. Samadhina, by complete absorption. Samadhi, like that, right? So a person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which The consummation is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same nature. This means the consummation is spiritual, and that what you're offering is also spiritual. Right? So we have to understand this thing, that once you engage anything in the service of the Lord, it becomes transcendental. Just as if you take an iron rod and you touch it with fire, it acquires the properties of fire. So similarly, anything that you have that is engaged in the service of Lord is no longer material. And that's why one of the verses that I keep on saying, prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna. So one who considers items which are used for the devotional or engaged in the service of the Lord, one who thinks that they are material, prapancha, earth, water, fire, air, ether. If he's just thinking that these are simple material objects, is, prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubhi parityago. So he's a person who's trying to get liberation from this material world, and he's renouncing those things, and he's saying that, oh, they are prapanchikataya, they are just material. Then his renunciation is falgu vairagyam uchyate. His vairagya, his renunciation is falgu or useless. Right? Why? Because Brahma arpanam Brahma havi, Brahmagnau Brahmana hutam, Brahmaneva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samhadinaha. The moment you start using anything, now, and this is what Krishna is telling us, that you do it in Krishna consciousness. And this karmic reactions that you get, good or bad, they are happening on a material plane. Good action, bad action, you suffer them in this material world. But the moment you raise your activities to a higher plane, then you are beyond these laws, right? In as much as if I'm driving on a road, and there is a red light, and the red light is on, and if I drive through it, then I will be punished, because it's a law that has to be followed by everybody who is driving a car or any vehicle on the road. Now, if I elevate myself and I sit on a helicopter and I fly through the red light, am I going to be punished for doing that? No, because you are at a higher level and different rules are applicable to you at that level. Then at the lower level, different rules are applicable, because it's a material and the spiritual, like that, right? So here in the purport, Prabhupada has given a very nice purport, and I'll read it here. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. We'll do that in chapter 4. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. So we have been fallen into this ocean, we have to get out. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, and a very nice example Prabhupada is giving, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of bowels due to overindulgence in milk products, like had like 10 katoris of kheer and then had some barfi on top of it and 2 glasses of milk, then you're going to have a stomach upset. So is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna, or activities, sacrifices, simply meant for the satisfaction of Viṣṇu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Viṣṇu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahman means spiritual. And about this complete absorption, there's such a nice story that we come across in Chaitanya Charitamrita about a Brahman who was very poor. And so he could not afford to make bhoga for the Lord, nice bhoga, right? But he really wanted to serve. He wanted to serve Krishna. He wanted to do bhoga for Krishna. So what he used to do was he used to offer these things mentally. So he would close his eyes and then he would prepare the kheer for Krishna. Mentally, he would light the fire, put the pot on it, put milk, whatever goes, rice, and then start boiling the kheer. And then, he took it out in katoris and he offered it to the Lord. And before offering the Lord, he said, oh, let me just check how hot it is. And then he put his finger in it. And as soon as he put the finger in it, his trance broke. because it was very hot, and he looked at his finger and his finger was burned. So you see, one can be so much engrossed, the samadhina, the word that was used, one can be completely, complete absorption. He was there. So much so that, whatever was there in his mind manifested, and he got the burn in his finger. So these are things, achintya, very difficult to, comprehend, but that does happen. The word Brahma, Brahman, means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahma Jyotir, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyotir, but when the Jyotir is covered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. And when we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam on Friday, when Kuntī Maharani was talking about this veil, she was calling it the curtain. Maya hi javanika chanam. Javanika, we said Javanika is a curtain. And he says, you cannot na lakshya se murdasha nata natyo yatodhara. So you cannot see, right? So this curtain of material energy that has come over, that has to be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together, Brahman, or the absolute truth or spiritual nature. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter, dovetail for the cause of absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. This is a very, very important thing. It is saying matter is regaining its spiritual quality. That's a very powerful statement, isn't it? After hearing everything about that this is spiritual and this is material, this is spiritual and this is material, now this Prabhupada is saying that matter retains its spiritual quality. And why does it retain? Why is he saying that? Because remember, Maya is also, this material world is also, material energy is also an energy of Krishna. And Krishna is transcendental, right? So we have to remember that, when you start using the material things in the service of the Lord, then it will regain. When you don't have that connection, Maya, when you're not connecting it with Krishna, then it assumes other proportions, and then it will bewilder you, and it will do all kinds of things, right? But the same thing, when you're using it for the service of the Lord, will regain its spiritual nature, and then will liberate your consciousness to a higher level. Matter, dovetail for the cause of absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness. What is the illusory consciousness? Biggest illusory consciousness we have is that I am this body, right? So it removes that illusory consciousness and into Brahman, I am the soul, right? Or the supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna, or sacrifice for the absolute. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna. So remember, I'd asked you in the beginning that when we use the word yajna or sacrifice, what are the things that come to your mind, right? So somebody can think of, okay, there has to be a kund, and then you pour ghee in it. Is that yajna? Yes, that is yajna. But if somebody is, I'm standing by the side of the road and is singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that is called Sankirtan Yajna. Right? That is also a yajna where you are sacrificing, where you are giving up. So what are you doing? That, you are sacrificing the voice, the urge to speak. We are sacrificing that urge to speak, and instead of speaking nonsense, we are speaking the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So that also becomes a sacrifice. When you are sitting and reading the scriptures, right? So you're sacrificing your propensity to read trash and instead read the Vedic literature. So all these activities, because they're connecting with Krishna, they are Krishna conscious activities, they are sacrifices, and they are pleasing to Viṣṇu. And there will be no karmic reactions to that, which means that because you read 40 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam every day, you will get so much of good karma. No. What you will gain is transcendental, sukriti, which will help you get out of this material world, like that. Okay? in that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, becomes transcendental. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. So I will stop here now so that you get at least 20 minutes to share your reflections and your questions. And let's go. And I see Vaishana Mataji had raised her hand for quite some time now. So Mataji, you can ask a question after unmuting yourself. And I think I need to give you privileges to unmute yourself, right? All right, and you can mute. All right. Okay, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Mataji, one thing I don't remember in what context I thought, but one thing when you said samadhi, that time it came to my mind, Mataji. AIMS hospital in Delhi, they did this trial, and Mataji, this Gayatri mantra, when they chant, and the energy comes in the body of the patients, and many of them are being treated for mental troubles. Yes. So, Mataji, I tried myself at home. And Mataji, this gives you, it seems that, when you said that he was trying, mentally he was offering the bhoga to the Lord and his finger got burned. Mataji, this I tried, and yes, if you are facing the sun, when the sun is about to rise, and you feel that the energy should go into me, and you say that mantra in full concentration, Mataji, you feel that the energy is going from top to your toe.
Very good.
This I realized, Mataji. This was wonderful experience, Mataji.
Vaishana Mataji, which hospital are they doing this at?
All India Medical Institution, Delhi.
Oh, AIMS. They do that at many hospitals. I've read that patients, chronically ill patients, cancer patients, and like that. They will also tell them to do the Om, and people from different faiths actually agree, and they say that, of course, Om is a transcendental sound, right? It's a sound from the spiritual world. It's not a material sound at all. Yeah. Sutapa.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, there is a word in Mukta Shangaha. So it's liberated from association. So what kind of association we are talking here? Means it's all
with
kind
material. Association with material world. Association with the material world. Yeah. Purusha prakriti stohi bhungte prakriti jair guna karanam guna sangasya sad asad yoni janmashu. So it says Purusha. Purusha means the soul. Right? Purusha prakriti stohi. So this Purusha who is placed in this prakriti, in this material, right? Bhungte prakriti jair guna. So when the spirit soul is put inside this material world, then it'll undergo or suffer or realize or undergo the effects of jair guna, the three modes of material nature. It'll undergo that. And because it associates karanam guna sangasya. Karana means because. Guna means these modes of material nature. Sangasya, you're associating with that, right? So I am this, I am that, I am angry. And karanam guna sangasya sad asad yoni janmashu. So because of dabbling with different modes of material nature and thinking that I am this body, the soul will be born in different kinds of, will be placed in different kinds of, yoni means womb, in a different kind of wombs, right? You want to be angry and you want to be controlling and you want everybody to be afraid of you, and you also like meat on the side, and okay, you will go into the womb of a lion and be born as a lion again, lion in the next verse. Karanam guna sangasya, trying to do that. So here the mukta sangha means that you have to be liberated from these sanghas that you get, associating. Mukta sangha means associating with the modes of material nature. They are not necessarily that they are saying that you stop associating with everybody around you and become a Babaji and sit on the top of Himalayas. No, you see, the modes that are modes, and let not the mode conquer you. And one of the things that we have to constantly do, and this would be a practice, and all of us should constantly do our practice, is to keep on analyzing your thoughts. Thoughts will come all the time. All the time. It's a non-stop factory. And so instead of being bewildered and also acting upon the thoughts, try to look at the thoughts. And this should be a rigorous exercise we should always be doing. That to catch yourself thinking. And then, analyze and say, this is not good. I should stop going that path. I will stop it right now. Otherwise, one thought will lead to another thought will lead to another thought, right? For example, if I tell you that if human beings also had tails, human beings don't have tails, what do you think would happen? Can you give me some thoughts? So Tapa, can you tell me one thing that if human beings also had tails, what would happen? Anything that you think.
We'll try to think where is the tail, or maybe we'll remember animal who has the tail.
Okay, so you will remember animals who have tail. So Sukumal Radhe Mataji, what do you think? If human beings also had tails, what would that lead to? What would be some things that will come to your mind?
You know how a dog keeps going around and around and around looking for its tail?
Yes.
We would probably just be, going around and around in circles and not knowing what we are looking for.
Right. And Varshana Mataji, what do you say?
Mataji, I was just thinking how will I wear a sari?
How will you wear the sari? There you go. And Simi Mataji, what do you say? You had raised your hand. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, jumping around like monkeys or something.
Right. So you see, just by I just asked one thing, that what if we also have tails? So many ideas came, and I can plant a few more ideas. Now, if you have a tail, then you need an extra piece of clothing, right? Like you wear a sari, wear a blouse. Now the tail also needs something. You will need jewelry for the tail. You will need to curl the hair on the tail. The tail might have less hair or more hair. Are you a blondie or are you auburn? Who are you? Your tail is red or golden or silver blonde? It's all
I was going to say there'd be a whole big industry on grooming the tail and like hairdressing and like tail dressing and so on.
Exactly, tail trimming, right? Somebody has a bushy tail, somebody doesn't have a tail. What if somebody will pull your tails get entangled, teasing somebody because of the tail, using your tail to beat others, tail got wet, tail got left behind, murdered the tail. So there's so many things. So mind can go in so many directions, and then you have to at once stop and say, like, where are we headed with this? Is this really, I want to do that? Those checks and balances have to be done throughout the day, as long as you're living, as long as you're awake. When you go into sleep and you're in the dream state, there's not much that you can do, but you can always pray to the Lord before you go to sleep. That please let me have dreams about you, O Lord, and let me not continue dreaming about my material things in my dreams also. So Tapa, is that a hand you raised?
No,
Okay.
yes, I got the answer. Thank you, Mataji.
You got the answer? Okay. Anybody else? Anything else?
I was going to say, on the subject of the tail, that would be one more racial feature, like, the hair. So it might be the short tail belong to certain races and the long tail to another race, and then the color of the tail to a certain race. So that would add more to racial distinguishing features. So it's a good thing we don't have tails.
Okay. And then what would be good if we had a tail? Let's see would there be something good that you can do if you had a tail?
Maybe another sensory organ.
Should be another sensory organ. You could, use your tail to jump from trees to trees, which you can't. You can hang from your tail, then both hands are free. If you're standing in a bus, then you can use your tail to hold on to the rail. You can do so many things, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But that is, so if it's long. What if it's short? Some
what
races
if it's short? Yeah.
And some races have a tall tail, long tail.
Exactly. And then, they will be like, hey, that man, he had a long tail, but he married that woman who has such a short tail. Right? So these things are, so you see, God in all his wisdom did not give us tails, because we'd be in a bigger mess. because of that. So what I was saying was that, the thought processes, the conversations that we have, if they are all ultimately leading to God, right? So we had this little discussion about the tail, but then in the end, we concluded that Krishna is great. And for some very valid reasons, he did not give us a tail like that, right? So this working in Krishna consciousness and working for Krishna and how it absolves yourself of any karmic reactions that you will have is a very, very, very interesting thing, right? When you're working for the government, you can go and kill. But once you come back from duty and you kill somebody because you are angry, then they will hang you, right? So, so this is very, very important to know what the intentions are. And Krishna sees everything. Krishna sees everything, and so intention is very important. So I'll give you two stories that I have heard. And one story is that there was a man, and he was sent to the war. Now, to go to the war, you have to be, and to become a military man, you have to be a Kshatriya, right? That nature has to be there. But here it doesn't happen, right? These days, you are drafted for military work and you're pulled and you're said like, no, go fight the war. Like you're a 16-year-old boy, all that you know is all that you think of is how do I spend my weekend? And now you are told to go and fight a war and run these big machines that you don't even know how to operate. And then of course, so one of these persons, he was fighting a war and he was with his colleague. And so, the bullets the enemy was firing the bullets, and the one bullet hit his colleague, and he fell down. So he died. And then the bullets were coming, and this guy, the first one, had to run and take cover someplace else. So he had to run across the field, but the enemies were shooting. And so what he did was he said, okay, anyway, my colleague is already dead. So he picked up his body, and behind the cover of that body, he crossed the field. And so that, if there were any bullets that will come, then bullets will hit this dead man. It doesn't matter. I will save my life. So he went there. And then by the time, and he reached his own, camp. When he reached the camp, and he dumped the dead body, and he said that, I've come from there. And then the second person who was shot, he was actually alive. And so the people in the base camp, they were very, very happy that he had, not only had he escaped the enemy bullets, he had even carried his friend who was, and if he had not carried his friend would have died. So he was awarded an honor. So although his act was a cowardly act, right? He was hiding behind somebody's dead body and crossing, but nobody knows the intention. People just thought, right? But Krishna is Bhavgrahi Janardana. He's living in our hearts, and he knows Sarvasya Chaham Hidi Sannivishta Matta Smritir Jnanam Apuhanacha. So we can say anything that we like. We can write anything in an email. We can write anything in a message. It might be very flowery, very beautiful, very this and very that. But Krishna knows what you really meant when you said that. So we have to remember that there is Krishna always watching us on the top. And not only Krishna, there are actually many people who watch us. The demigods also watch us, and they know all the time. Chitragupta, right? He's taking account of all that. That's one. The second was this story that they said that there was a man who had who didn't want people to paint graffiti on his, on the walls of his bungalow. There was a boundary wall, and usually people will write, right? So it was prohibited, and if somebody would do that, they were severely punished. So there was this group of kids who were playing outside, and then one of them went and wrote something. And then as he had finished the reading, this man came out, the owner came out, and he saw that, and then he told the kid, come inside. So the rest of the kids were, shaken with fear, so they stayed outside and they were waiting. And they were thinking that, once he comes out, then, that man is going to beat him very badly, maybe kill him, or like how kids can think, throw him in a dungeon, lock him inside, and all those things are doing. And then after some time of agonizing, they see that this kid is coming out and he has a chocolate in his hand. So they were very, very surprised. And the man had also come in, and he was escorting the kid out. And they were very surprised. So they looked at him, and he said, oh, wow, we were thinking that you will scold him for scribbling on the wall. And so he said, yeah, But look at what he has written there. And the kid has written that writing on this wall is prohibited. So what he did was that he did the work of the owner, right? And the owner was very pleased. So similarly, Krishna is telling Arjuna that, when he shows him the Vishwaroop later on, and even now, he's saying, I have already killed them. Why does he take birth? Why does he not birth? Why does he come to this material world, Krishna? Paritranaye sadhuna vinashaye cha duskritam dharma sansthapanathaye sambhavami yuge yuge. So to establish the religion, I come here to this material world, right? And Duryodhan is ghore mam. Kim karmani ghore mam? You're asking Kim karmani ghore mam? No. The one who is doing ghore activities, ghastly activities, is Duryodhan. And you will seemingly be engaged in doing seemingly ghastly activities, but no, you will be acting for me. Why? Because I have come here to dharma sansthapanarthaya. These bad kings have to be removed. And a good king like Yudhishthira has to be placed on the throne. So when you're doing it for me. Nimitta matra bhava sabya sachin. Just become an instrument and do the thing for me. And when you're working for Krishna, you will get the chocolate. Like that. And so you're freed from the karmic reactions. So its philosophy goes very, very deep there. And he will continue. He will continue in the next further verses in Krishna consciousness. But from the beginning up until now, till the 9th verse, he will be telling him about akarma. This is akarma, right? So there is karma, there is vikarma, and there is akarma, right? So vikarma is when you do things, ye shastra vidhim usrijya. Shastra vidhim, you have abandoned all the vidhis, all the directions of the shastras, and you are doing things. So that is vikarma, bad, right? And then karma, plain karma, or sakarma, or sometimes also called sakam karma, is when you do things, but you were focused on the results. So when you were focused on the results, so we read that verse from Bhagavatam, Nunam pramatta kurute vikarmana. So when you are desiring the results and you want to enjoy, then what we do is that we do vikarma. We do all kinds of sinful activities, and when we suffer the results of that, because the focus is completely on myself. So I'm doing that. Right? You can also do the sakam activities. They could be good activities. For example, for enjoyment, I could also do good activities like people do. People do all kinds of, they will put hospitals, they will create, water taps and things like that, big bells, do all those kinds of things, right? They're doing good things. And why are they doing good things? Because they want to be elevated to high heavenly planets. So you wanted a heavenly planet? All right, I'm going to give you another body, which will come with the 4 things that the body comes with: birth, death, old age, and disease. And after you elevated to the heavenly planets, when your credits are over, you will be kicked out of heavens and you'll come back again here, right? So you suffered and enjoyed, but there is a bandhan, karmani bandhini loke, you will be bandhan, you will be tied, right? Sangasya, that attachment, and you'll keep on coming back here again and again and again, like that. But akarma is those activities for which you will never get a reward or a punishment. And that, how does that happen? That will only happen when you're working for Krishna. For any other thing, there will be a reaction, karmic reaction. So that is why even the simple act of eating a food, we have to eat the food, right? Sometimes. So when you're eating the food, there are certain bad things we can do. For example, you eat radish, right? You eat carrots. What are they? They are roots. So somebody killed that plant to get the root for you. So there and then there is karmic reaction. And karmana, it's very difficult to understand the intricacies of karma. And which means that if I'm eating a carrot, I was not the one who pulled the carrot. It was the farmer who did that. He made the money on that. Why should I suffer? We will. Because if I was not in the market to buy carrots, then the farmer would have never pulled the carrot out. So you see, you can become an indirect cause of some actions and you suffer the karmic reactions. So because of this is the situation, this is a sad situation with this material world, that because you have come here, you will suffer. The only way to get out of that loop is to transcendentalize it. So before you cook and eat that carrot, you offer that carrot to Krishna, so that then it gives up its material properties, becomes transcendental, and you will cook Krishna, and then you will, carrot. Now you will go and try to see which type of carrot does Krishna like to eat, which is the right way of carrot cooking for Krishna. Then you will go research, right? So now you are looking at recipes on how to make carrot, carrot halwa, carrot sabji, carrot paratha, whatever you're doing, right? But all that research that you're doing, that is for Krishna. That is to please the senses of Krishna, right? Does Krishna like carrot with methi beach and fenugreek? Does Krishna like jeera in his carrot? You have to do the research, right? People do. And that is Krishna consciousness. And when you eat that prasadam, you won't get that karmic reactions to that. Right? So on that happy note, I'll stop the class here, and we'll meet again on Thursday. And happy birthday, happy Appearance Day once again to Varshana Mataji. So birthday, thank you for doing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shraddha Mataji, so much.
Thank you so much, Shraddha Mataji. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much,